For the time being, it's impossible for me to take my family back to the UK safely. Well, for a start, the only time that I've come back to the UK is...
The room was silent before the truth was even spoken. William had walked in expecting another routine briefing, another sealed folder from the late Queen's archive, another private matter to be handled quietly. But when the archivists placed Elizabeth's hidden files before him, one sentence changed everything. Harry had been formally blocked from a private royal pathway, once thought still open to him. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William did not reach for the file at first. He stared at it, as if touching the cover would make the words inside permanent. The restricted archive chamber at Windsor was not just another palace room. It was a guarded space where private royal papers were kept away from public records and even away from many senior aides. Elizabeth's private instructions meant written directions she had left for family matters. She believed required protection after her reign. That was why the archivists spoke with such care. They were not offering an opinion. They were handing the prince a command from the woman who had shaped his entire life. The senior archivist cleared his throat and explained the central decision plainly. Elizabeth's hidden files showed that Harry had been blocked from receiving access to a confidential family position, a private royal protection channel, and a future advisory role once reserved for senior blood royals. William's jaw tightened. The future king understood at once why this mattered. This was not about one argument, one interview, or one wounded headline. This was about trust, access, and the invisible doors inside monarchy that only a few people were ever allowed to enter. Harry was not in the room, yet William felt him everywhere. He imagined his brother hearing the words. He imagined the disbelief, the anger, the old pain rising again between them. For years, the prince had believed distance could perhaps be narrowed with time, with silence, with careful steps. But Elizabeth's file turned distance into design. She had not simply watched the fracture. She had prepared for it. The archivist then revealed the detail that made William look up sharply. The file had not been created in haste. It had been sealed for a specific moment after Elizabeth's passing, meaning the Queen had expected this day to come. Beside the formal page sat a handwritten note, and its warning was colder than any palace statement. Elizabeth feared a future crisis if Harry returned to certain private royal channels. William finally asked, who else knew? The archivist hesitated. That pause told him the secret had not stayed buried alone. But before William could understand why Elizabeth had taken such a hard line, he had to face the people whose futures were now trapped inside her hidden decision. This was not just a file. It was a family fracture written in royal ink. William stood at the center of a decision he had not made, while Harry was suddenly cast as the man Elizabeth herself had placed beyond a private boundary. Charles would have to absorb the shock as king, Camilla would sense the danger, and every old loyalty inside the palace would be tested. William felt the weight before anyone explained it fully. He was no longer simply a son, a brother, or the wounded half of a royal divide that had played out before the world. He was the future king, and that meant he had inherited more than ceremony, titles, and duty. He had inherited Elizabeth's unfinished decisions. The crown's duties were the responsibilities attached to protecting the monarchy's future, and now one of those responsibilities had landed in his hands like a blade wrapped in velvet. The prince understood the cruelty of it at once. He would be expected to carry a message that came from their grandmother, yet Harry would almost certainly hear it as another rejection from him. His place in the family had always been more complicated than the palace allowed itself to admit. Even after the distance, even after the public rupture, even after years of separation and anger, his royal identity still depended on belonging. He could step away from duties, speak from another world, build a different life, and still remain tied to the institution by blood, memory, and grief. That was why Elizabeth's hidden file cut so deeply. It did not simply block a role. It challenged the one thing Harry had never truly surrendered, the belief that somewhere inside the royal structure, there was still a door with his name on it. Charles received the news with a heaviness that changed the room. The king set down his glasses, lowered his eyes, and said nothing for several seconds. That silence mattered, because he was not only monarch, he was a father facing proof that his mother had drawn a line around his younger son. Camilla watched him carefully. She understood palace danger when it entered quietly. Then she asked the question no one else had dared to form. Did the file name only Harry? The archivist answered with controlled precision. The document also referred to future family stability. The phrase landed harder than any accusation, because it suggested Elizabeth had not acted from irritation, disappointment, or passing emotion. She had been thinking about the monarchy after her, about William's reign, about the risk of unresolved family wounds becoming institutional weakness. A private aide then added that the Queen's wording was unusually direct, leaving no space for soft reinterpretation after her death. William made his decision. The file had to be read in full. But when one courtier warned that the next page explained what triggered Elizabeth's final judgment, the prince knew the worst part had not yet been spoken. And that next page would take William back to the moment Elizabeth stopped seeing Harry's distance as temporary pain and began treating it as a constitutional threat. Every royal crisis has a moment people later pretend was smaller than it was. For Elizabeth, that moment came during a private balcony rehearsal before a national Thanksgiving service, when Harry challenged the order of appearance and questioned why his place had shifted behind working royals. It was brief. It was controlled. But to Elizabeth, it revealed something deeper than hurt pride. Harry felt the blow before the ceremony had even begun. To everyone else, the order of appearance may have seemed like a small matter of palace planning, but to him, it carried the sting of being moved further from the center of the family he had once stood inside. A national Thanksgiving service was a formal act of public gratitude, usually held to honor a major royal or national milestone. And the balcony order was not just about where people stood. It signaled rank, trust, duty, and belonging. That was why the change cut so sharply. Harry was not simply being placed behind William's family. He was being reminded that the monarchy had already started arranging the future without him. At Sahel, William remembered the moment with uncomfortable clarity. He had seen Harry's face tighten, heard the sharp edge in his brother's voice, and felt the old rivalry rise beneath the polished language of protocol. Harry questioned why his place had shifted, why the line had changed, why working royals were being placed ahead of blood. The words were controlled, but the meaning was not. He felt diminished. He felt exposed. And when frustration broke through, in a private remark that wounded those nearby, the room changed in a way no aide could smooth over. Elizabeth heard enough from the side chamber to understand what others tried to avoid. The Queen did not react with anger first. She reacted with concern. William would later remember that expression more than the exchange itself, because it was the first time he saw Elizabeth look at Harry, not as a grandson who had caused pain, but as a risk the crown might one day be forced to manage. That difference mattered. Hurt could be forgiven. Distance could be healed. But authority, once challenged from inside the family, became something far more dangerous. The hidden file recorded that private conclusion with devastating calm. Elizabeth had decided Harry could not be restored to sensitive family channels without risking future instability. Sensitive family channels meant private lines of access to royal planning, protection discussions, and confidential advice that could affect the monarchy's direction. Then came the second note. Affection must not be confused with access. William read the phrase and felt the full cruelty of it settle in his chest. William understood then that Elizabeth had separated love from duty long before anyone else dared to say it aloud. But the past was no longer safely in the past, because Harry would soon learn that the door he loved was only closed by distance, had been locked by Elizabeth herself. When William finally faced Harry, the room carried years of grief before either brother spoke. There were no cameras, no aides standing between them, no palace phrasing to soften the blow. Only a closed door, 2 chairs placed too far apart, and a file on the table that neither man wanted to touch. Harry knew before William said it that something had changed forever. William placed Elizabeth's file between them, with the kind of care usually given to something sacred, but the silence made it feel like a weapon. The private sitting room at Windsor was meant for family conversations away from ceremony, away from microphones, away from the carefully polished language of the palace. Yet nothing about this meeting felt private in the comforting sense. The prince knew the file carried more than memory. It carried authority. Harry looked at it as though the paper itself had crossed an invisible line, because this was not a rumor being repeated or a palace aide delivering another cold message. This was their grandmother's hand reaching into the present. Harry asked one question first. Who made the decision? William answered carefully. Because every name mattered. It had not come from Charles. It had not come from Camilla. It had not come from palace staff trying to protect themselves from another storm. It came from Elizabeth's hidden instructions. Hidden instructions meant private written directions kept sealed for future use. Usually, opened only when the family or the institution reached a moment the monarch had prepared for. That explanation did not soften the truth. It sharpened it. Harry's face changed before William finished speaking. Harry reacted with disbelief first, then anger. He pushed his chair back, as if a few extra feet could make the words less brutal. He had endured distance. He had survived public rupture. He had lived with being outside, the daily machinery of royal life. But this was different. This was not absence. This was exclusion. William struggled to keep his voice steady as he told his brother that he did not write the file, but he could not ignore it. The prince sounded less like a victor than a man being forced to wound someone he still loved. Harry demanded to see the page. William hesitated, then allowed him to read only the passage that named the block. No confidential family position, no private protection channel, no future advisory role reserved for senior blood royals. Harry read it once, then again, as if the words might change if he stared hard enough. Then he noticed the second sealed attachment. His voice dropped. What else did she write? William did not answer. That silence became its own confession. Harry stood, wounded beyond argument, and left before the full truth was spoken. The unopened attachment remained on the table, between love and duty. Yet the real force of Elizabeth's decision did not live only in family pain. It lived in the quiet machinery of royal control that now began to move around them. Behind every royal revelation stands a smaller group of people who never appear on balconies, never give interviews, and never raise their voices. Archivists, trustees, private secretaries, and legal guardians of the crown's memory had protected Elizabeth's file for years. Now they were no longer preserving history. They were enforcing it. And Charles discovered that even kings cannot easily undo a dead monarch's final boundary. Charles felt the pressure shift from private heartbreak to royal machinery. He had listened as a father, but now he had to answer as the king, and that difference cut through the room like ice. The hidden files were not loose papers waiting for someone powerful enough to dismiss them. They were controlled by archivists and private trustees, meaning the people legally trusted to guard personal royal records and make sure written conditions were followed exactly. Elizabeth had not left a suggestion. She had left a protected instruction, and every person around the table understood what that meant. Harry's pain could be debated. William's shock could be mourned, but the file itself had authority. Charles rubbed his thumb along the edge of the folder, searching for some weakness in the wording, some narrow space where fatherhood might slip through. He asked whether the block could be paused, softened, or quietly reviewed without creating another wound. The answer came back with devastating calm. Because the decision was tied to family governance and private royal access, it could not be casually reversed. Family governance meant the private rules that shape how royal relatives are trusted with information, roles, and influence behind palace doors. Private royal access meant more than entry into rooms. It meant entry into the hidden conversations where the future of the monarchy was protected. Before the public ever heard a word, William watched his father struggle, and for the first time, he saw the king not as a man refusing Harry, but as a son cornered by Elizabeth's final authority. That realization changed the pain. Charles was not standing above the decision. He was trapped beneath it. The monarch had power, yes, but not the power to pretend his mother's written boundary had never existed. William understood then why Elizabeth had made the file so difficult to undo. She had feared hesitation. She had feared sympathy. She had feared that love would one day be used as a reason to reopen doors she believed had to remain shut. The senior archivist then delivered the sentence that turned discomfort into dread. Elizabeth required any challenge to the file to be recorded formally. That meant no quiet reversal, no private favor, no soft correction hidden beneath palace language. If Charles challenged it, the challenge would become part of the record. Camilla caught something else before anyone moved on. Her eyes returned to a phrase buried in the instructions: external influence. She asked what the Queen had meant, and the silence around the table answered before the archivist did. Charles finally asked whether Harry had to be informed in writing. The reply was firm: yes. The family wound now required official language, official delivery, and official consequence. Once the decision moved from whispered rooms into formal palace action, the fallout became impossible to contain. The most painful royal decisions are often delivered in the coldest language. Harry did not receive shouting, punishment, or public humiliation. He received a letter. It was formal, precise, and devastating. Its sentences carried Elizabeth's authority, Charles's signature, and William's silence. By the time Harry reached the final paragraph, the private separation he had long resisted had become something official. Harry had always known the palace could wound without raising its voice. But this letter did something sharper. It turned years of distance into written fact. The formal notice confirmed that Elizabeth's hidden file blocked him from the confidential royal pathway named in the archive. That pathway meant a private route back into sensitive family trust, access to protected discussions, quiet advisory contact, and certain royal channels kept away from public duty, but still tied to blood, rank, and future stability. For Harry, the words did not only close a door, they told him the door had been closed by his grandmother before he ever reached for the handle. Charles reviewed the letter before it was sent, and every line seemed to ask him to choose between the monarch he had become and the father he still was. The king understood why the wording had to be firm, yet firmness did not spare him. William reviewed it too, and his silence became part of the punishment neither man wanted to deliver. The prince did not rewrite Elizabeth. He did not soften the phrase that mattered most. He simply read it, stopped, and let the full force of the sentence settle over him. The crown must know where trust can safely rest. Harry read that line alone, and the defiance that had carried him through so many public storms slowly gave way to stillness. Anger would have been easier. Anger would have given him something to fight. But Elizabeth's name on the decision made the wound deeper because it reached beneath argument. It spoke from memory. It spoke from love turned into judgment. He could reject palace aides, challenge courtiers, blame the system, or rage against William. But rejecting her was different. That was the moment the letter became more than official. It became personal. William later asked whether Harry had responded. The answer came back quietly. No reply. Only silence. His face tightened, because silence from Harry was not peace. It was impact. Then a palace aide revealed the next step. Access badges, private briefings, and selected family records would be quietly updated. Nothing dramatic, nothing public, just small changes with enormous meaning. The first visible consequence came when Harry's name was removed from an internal access list. William insisted on seeing it himself. But when William watched his brother's name disappear from the list, something inside him shifted from shock to a quieter, more dangerous resolve. There was no ceremony when William changed. No speech, no announcement, no public declaration. Only a private room, one lamp burning low, and Charles standing opposite him with the exhaustion of a father who had run out of ways to protect both sons. For the first time, William did not ask how to soften Elizabeth's decision. He asked how to carry it without breaking the monarchy. William understood that something inside him had crossed a line. The shock had not vanished, but it had hardened into purpose. He stood before Charles without aides, without private secretaries, without anyone to translate pain into palace language. This was no longer about finding a gentler phrase for Harry or delaying the consequences until another day. It was about accepting that Elizabeth N's file had forced the family to choose structure over sentiment. Structure meant the protected order that keeps the crown steady when personal feelings threaten to pull it apart. Sentiment meant the love, guilt, and memory that made that order almost unbearable to defend. Charles admitted the truth slowly, as if each word cost him something. Elizabeth had left them no easy path. The king could love Harry, miss him, and still be bound by the late queen's warning. He could ache as a father, and still act as monarch. William listened, and for the first time, he did not argue against that division. He confessed that he still saw Harry as his brother. He still remembered the boy who stood beside him in grief, the man who once knew his silence without explanation. But now the prince understood why Elizabeth had separated personal love from royal trust. Love could forgive. Trust had to protect. Charles looked older when he heard those words. Not weaker, older. The king told William that monarchy often demands obedience from the people most wounded by it, and that sentence struck harder than any command. Charles had spent his life waiting for the crown, only to discover that power did not free him from pain. It sharpened pain into duty. William saw that clearly now. His father was not asking him to be cold. He was asking him to survive the kind of responsibility that leaves no one untouched. William then opened the sealed attachment, and the room seemed to tighten around the silence. The note was not addressed to Charles. It was addressed to him. Elizabeth had written directly to the future king, not as a grandmother offering comfort, but as a monarch passing down her hardest lesson. She warned that the future crown must be protected, even when the threat does not come from enemies, critics, or strangers, but from inside the family itself. William folded the note carefully. He did not look relieved. He looked changed. The palace would acknowledge the matter with restraint, but not denial. Elizabeth's decision would stand, and William would carry it without pretending it did not hurt. And when the world finally sensed what had happened behind palace walls, one image captured the rupture more powerfully than any official statement ever could. By morning, the private wound had become a national spectacle. The palace tried to keep its language measured, but the public understood the emotion beneath it. This was not another quarrel between brothers. This was Elizabeth's authority reaching beyond the grave and reshaping the future of the royal family. Outside Buckingham Palace, people stopped, stared, and spoke in lowered voices. William felt the weight of the story before the first broadcast had even finished. The palace statement had been written with restraint, but restraint could not hide the blow. It confirmed that archival guidance from Elizabeth had affected private family governance, which meant the late Queen's preserved instructions had now shaped how trust, access, and family influence would be handled behind palace doors. That mattered, because royal family governance was never only about private feelings. It decided who could enter sensitive conversations, who could be trusted near future planning, and who remained close enough to the crown to influence its direction. Broadcasters seized on the meaning almost instantly. They framed the moment as the day William inherited not just Elizabeth's crown duties, but her hardest family judgment. The prince watched the coverage in silence, disturbed by the way Harry's pain had been flattened into headlines, arguments, and sharp studio phrases. He knew his brother was no longer only a man reading a painful letter. Harry had become a symbol in a national argument about loyalty, exile, punishment, and whether Elizabeth's final authority should be treated as sacred or severe. Harry saw the reaction from afar, and the distance did not protect him. The public debate made the wound feel larger, colder, and more permanent. He had been excluded by palace systems, but now he felt judged by his grandmother's recorded hand. That was the part no statement could soften. He could fight Charles. He could challenge William. He could reject courtiers, advisors, and palace language. But Elizabeth's name carried a different kind of power. It reached into memory, into childhood, into the years before the fracture, and turned belonging into something he could no longer claim without question. Then came the image that captured the rupture. A major newspaper front page appeared, with a black and white image of Elizabeth beside the point. Headline: The File That Blocked Harry. The words were blunt, almost brutal, and they turned a private document into a public verdict. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered near the gates, not shouting, not celebrating, only murmuring, as if they had witnessed something historic and sad. One older woman summed up the mood with a sentence that traveled further than any palace. Briefing. If Elizabeth wrote it, she must have feared something. William heard that phrase repeated later, and it stayed with him. Public sympathy had split in two. Some saw Harry's hurt and called the decision cruel. Others saw Elizabeth's authority and believed the monarchy had been protected. Between those two reactions stood William, knowing both sides carried truth, when neither truth made the burden lighter. As the noise grew louder, he prepared for the final private act that would define his response. But the final meaning of this moment would not be decided by headlines. It would be decided by what William did with Elizabeth's file after the world had seen its shadow. In the end, the file did not destroy the monarchy. It revealed what the monarchy had already become. William entered the archive one last time, not as a shocked brother, but as a future king, accepting the burden Elizabeth had left him. Harry remained wounded. Charles remained torn. But the crown, cold and ancient, had chosen continuity over comfort. William carried the file back with a stillness that felt heavier than grief. The shock had passed, but it had not left him untouched. It had settled into him, becoming part of the man the monarchy now required him to be. Elizabeth's file was returned under formal seal, meaning it was placed back into protected royal custody, with an official record confirming that its instructions remained active. The archive was no longer simply a place of memory. For William, it had become the chamber where brotherhood and duty were finally separated. William paused before handing it over. He was not grieving only a document, or even a decision. He was grieving the brotherhood that could no longer exist apart from royal responsibility. Harry had lost access to the private pathway he once believed might still remain open. But the prince had lost something too. He lost the comfort of believing pain could always be softened if enough time passed. He now understood that some royal wounds are not healed by love, because love is not always strong enough to protect an institution built on control, silence, and survival. Charles accepted the outcome with a sadness that no crown could hide. The king understood that Elizabeth's decision had protected the monarchy, but protection had come at a brutal cost. Private governance instructions, the personal rules a monarch leaves to guide family trust and access, had now closed the possibility of quiet reversal. Charles could not undo it without challenging his mother's final authority, and that truth left him trapped between the son he loved and the crown he had sworn to defend. William read the final page once more before the file disappeared from his hands. There was no anger toward Harry, no cruelty, no desire to erase him, only a stark warning that love must never be allowed to weaken the institution it hopes to heal. That was the deepest cut. Elizabeth had not blocked Harry because she had stopped caring. She had blocked him because she feared private hurt could one day become public instability. The verdict was clear. Harry lost access. William lost innocence. Charles lost the illusion that fatherhood could outrank monarchy. And Elizabeth's hidden files proved that the crown survives, by making decisions no family would ever choose willingly. This was the moment the monarchy stopped pretending every wound could be repaired, and William finally understood that Elizabeth's last lesson was not about punishment, it was about preservation. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.